Okay, so today we're going to dive into something that's super relevant, I think, for any dealership out there that's really serious about using AI to grow their business.
Yeah, for sure.
We're talking about the 30-day AI protocol transformation system.
Yeah, this is it. If you want to get beyond just like playing around with AI
Right.
and really make it a core part of how you operate and see those big results.
Yeah, you're not just dabbling, you're all in.
Yeah, exactly.
So we're going to be looking specifically at day 22 of the protocol today.
All right. From implementation to acceleration.
And this is where things get interesting, right? Because a lot of dealerships are probably at this point where they've brought in some AI tools.
Right. They've got the basics in place.
But then the question becomes, okay, how do we actually get some serious momentum from this?
Yeah. How do you go from just having the tools to actually accelerating your whole dealership's performance?
So for anyone listening in, maybe you've already rolled out like an AI system for your sales team to follow up with leads, or you've started messing around with some AI-powered content creation.
Right. You're past the starting line.
Yeah, you're off the blocks. But now it's about how do we really make this thing take off?
How do you get that sustained climb in performance?
That's what we're going to try to break down today.
Exactly.
So the protocol actually uses this really interesting analogy of a pilot.
Okay.
Like, think about a pilot. They've gone through all their pre-flight checks. Everything's green, perfect conditions, ready to go.
Right. All systems go.
But that real key moment is when they push the throttle.
Yeah. That's when it all comes together.
Yeah, that's when you go from preparation to actually moving and taking off.
Right.
So I guess relating that back to a dealership, you've done all the setup, the AI is running, your team kind of knows the basics.
Right. Content engines maybe spitting out some stuff.
But then it's how do we not just taxi around the runway forever? How do we actually gain altitude?
That's the big question. And this is where the protocol points out a big trap that a lot of dealerships might fall into.
Okay, let's talk about that.
And it's this idea that just doing more equals acceleration.
Yeah, we've got AI now. Let's just hit the gas on everything.
Right, like more content, more campaigns, more features. AI can handle it, right?
Push it to the limit.
But the protocol's really clear that without a focused approach, that kind of thinking can just lead to chaos.
Yeah, I can definitely see that happening. Just overwhelm everyone.
Yeah, you end up wasting resources, burning out your team, and you don't get that real acceleration you're looking for.
So instead of just flooring it, the protocol talks about this idea of controlled acceleration.
Right, it's much more strategic.
So what does that actually look like in a dealership? Like, practically speaking.
Well, they give this really great example of a dealership that did this really well. So they spent like 3 months going through those initial phases of the protocol, getting everything set up, integrating the AI into their systems, training their team, setting up their content engine, really fine-tuning the customer experience.
They put in the work.
Yeah, they built the foundation. But then, instead of just going all out, they implemented what they call a controlled acceleration protocol.
Okay, so it's not just this sudden explosion of activity. There's a plan.
Exactly. So first, they focused on what they called system acceleration.
Okay.
And this wasn't about making the AI do a ton more stuff right away. It was about gradually increasing the volume and the complexity of what their systems were doing.
So give me an example of that, like how it plays out in a real dealership.
So take their content engine. They didn't just tell it to start pumping out thousands of blog posts a day.
Right.
Instead, they started expanding the types of content they were making, maybe experimenting with short videos or really tailoring stuff to very specific customer profiles that the AI had identified.
Okay, so being really targeted with it.
Exactly. And on the personalization side, they started moving beyond just basic demographics. They were using data about actual customer behavior on their website and past interactions to personalize things even further.
Wow, that's next level.
And then with automation, they started having the AI handle more complex sequences, like nurturing leads based on how they were interacting with different content.
So it's getting smarter.
Yeah, and all the while, they were keeping a really close eye on how each of these changes was performing.
So it's like you're slowly increasing the power, but constantly checking the gauges to make sure everything can handle it.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. But what about the team? How do you bring everyone along on this journey?
So that was their next focus, team acceleration. And again, it wasn't about saying, okay, everyone work twice as hard now, or become an AI expert overnight. It was about giving everyone the support they needed to use these tools effectively.
So like building their skills.
Exactly. So someone who's got the basics of the AI-powered CRM down might get training on those more advanced features for lead scoring and opportunity management.
Okay.
The marketing team who's been using AI for basic social media scheduling, they might learn how to use the AI to analyze their posting times and their content strategy and optimize everything.
So they're learning to work smarter, not harder.
Exactly. It's about upskilling the whole team.
That's really cool. So it's not just about the AI doing more, it's about the team being able to do more with the AI.
Yeah, they're becoming more powerful.
And then the last piece of this controlled acceleration was what they called process acceleration.
Right, and this is where they focused on making everything flow smoothly.
So not just speeding things up, but making them more efficient.
Exactly. So they took a hard look at their workflows, identified any bottlenecks or clunky manual processes, and then used the AI to streamline those.
So where were some of those key areas? Like, give me some specific examples.
Well, a lot of it was about improving the handoffs between different departments. Like, let's say a lead comes in and the AI qualifies it as really strong. It can automatically route that lead to the right salesperson based on their expertise and availability.
Okay, so no more leads slipping through the cracks.
Right. And because everything is running more smoothly, things naturally get faster.
Yeah, it's not about rushing. It's about removing those obstacles.
Exactly.
Okay, so they've got these three pillars: system acceleration, team acceleration, process acceleration. They're really thoughtful about how they're approaching this, but what kind of results did this dealership actually see?
Well, the results were pretty impressive. They tripled their lead volume.
Wow, triple.
Yeah, because their marketing was reaching more people, and it was way more targeted thanks to the AI.
So they're working smarter, not harder.
Exactly. And their response times to customer inquiries dropped by 90%.
90%, that's huge.
Yeah, that's the power of automation.
Wow.
And then their conversion rates doubled because every interaction was more personalized and relevant.
Okay, so they're attracting more leads, they're responding faster, they're closing more deals. That's the trifecta.
Yeah, and on top of all that, their team's productivity went way up.
Now, was that because they were working longer hours? Because that's what usually happens.
No, not at all. It was because they were working smarter, they had better tools, streamlined processes, and they were more skilled at using the AI.
So they're not burning out, they're actually becoming more efficient.
Exactly. The AI was empowering them.
That's amazing. And I think this really highlights the difference between this controlled acceleration and that other approach we talked about. Just pushing harder and harder without a clear strategy.
Right, like that aircraft trying to climb too steeply.
Yeah.
You might get some initial altitude, but you can't sustain it.
Yeah, you're going to stall out.
Exactly. This controlled acceleration is about building sustainable momentum. You're constantly refining your systems, your team skills, your processes, so you can keep climbing higher.
So it's about precision, not just raw power.
Right. It's like a finely tuned machine.
Now, the protocol actually dives deeper into how this controlled acceleration works in specific areas like marketing, sales, and customer experience. So let's talk about marketing first. How did this dealership approach that in this controlled way?
So it wasn't just about spending more on ads or creating a ton more content. It was about using the AI to make their marketing more effective.
So quality over quantity.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Their targeting became laser focused because the AI was constantly analyzing customer data and identifying the best prospects.
Okay.
And they were using AI to run A/B tests and see what really resonated with their audience.
So they're constantly learning and improving.
Yeah, and then all of that fed into their overall optimization strategies. They were making small tweaks and improvements over time, and those added up to huge gains.
So it's not just about one big campaign, it's about that continuous improvement.
Exactly.
Okay, so marketing is humming along. What about sales? How did they accelerate that in a controlled way?
So a lot of times, sales acceleration is just code for make more calls, close more deals.
Yeah, push, push, push.
But this dealership took a much more intelligent approach.
Yeah.
They used the AI to make their lead handling smarter.
Okay.
So instead of just sending out generic follow-ups, the AI was analyzing each prospect, seeing what pages they visited on the website, what content they downloaded, how they interacted with previous emails.
It's really understanding the individual customer.
Yeah, and then it would give the salesperson all these insights so they could tailor their approach.
Okay, so they're going in with a plan.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And their sales presentations became hyper-personalized. They were addressing each customer's specific pain points and needs.
So no more generic pitches.
Right. And the cool thing was they saw their closing rates go way up, but it wasn't because of high-pressure tactics.
Yeah, it's not about being pushy.
It was because they were offering something that was truly valuable to each customer.
So they're solving problems, not just selling cars.
Exactly.
That's fantastic. And then the last piece of this is customer experience. How did they use AI to accelerate that in a controlled way?
Well, personalization was a big part of it. They used the AI to tailor all their communications and offers to each customer's preferences.
Okay.
And the response times got even faster because they were using AI-powered chatbots and intelligent routing systems.
So customers are getting answers right away.
Yeah, no matter what channel they're using.
Hmm.
And their service quality became more consistent because their service advisors had all this AI-powered information at their fingertips.
So everyone's getting a great experience every time.
Exactly.
So it seems like all these things are working together. It's not just marketing doing its thing, sales doing its thing. It's all connected.
Yeah, exactly. It creates this positive feedback loop.
More leads lead to more sales, which lead to happier customers, which lead to more referrals.
That's a virtuous cycle.
And that takes us back to that pilot analogy. You're not just focusing on one engine, you're making sure everything is working together for a smooth and sustainable climb.
Exactly.
So throughout this whole acceleration process, what's the role of the leadership team? Like, they can't just set it and forget it, right?
Right. They need to be very hands-on. They need to be monitoring everything closely, making sure the acceleration is controlled and aligned with their goals.
So what does that look like in practice?
Well, first of all, they need to have clear metrics for each AI system they're using.
Okay.
How is it performing? What are the key indicators they're tracking?
They need to know if it's actually working.
Right. And then they need to be tracking how well the team is adapting to the new tools and processes.
So they're not just looking at numbers, they're looking at people.
Exactly. And then they need to keep evaluating the efficiency of their workflows, seeing if there are any new bottlenecks or areas where they can optimize things.
So it's about constantly looking for ways to improve.
Yeah, and all of this monitoring gives them the information they need to make those crucial adjustments.
The protocol calls them trim adjustments, like a pilot making small adjustments to the controls.
Yeah, it could be anything from reallocating resources based on which marketing campaigns are performing best
Okay.
to providing extra training to a certain group of salespeople who are having trouble with a particular tool.
So they're being proactive and addressing issues before they become big problems.
Exactly. It's about staying ahead of the curve.
And that brings us to the ultimate goal of this controlled acceleration. What are we trying to achieve here?
Sustainable momentum.
Okay.
It's about finding a pace of growth and improvement that you can sustain over the long haul.
Not just a quick burst, but something that will keep you moving forward.
Exactly. And when you do this right, you start to see these compounding advantages. Every improvement builds on the last one.
It's like a snowball effect.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, the protocol breaks down this controlled acceleration process into 3 distinct phases. Can you walk us through those?
Sure. So the first phase is called initial power application.
Okay.
And this is where you're really focused on careful monitoring and gradual increases.
You're not going from 0 to 60 right away.
Right. You want to make sure everything is stable as you start to ramp things up. So they give this example of setting weekly targets, maybe a 20% increase in content output each week, or expanding personalization to one new customer segment per week.
Okay, so you're testing the waters and making sure everything can handle it.
Exactly.
What about the second phase?
That's called sustained climb.
Okay.
And this usually kicks in after about a month or two once you've got some momentum going. Now the focus shifts to really integrating your different AI systems and departments.
So everything's working together seamlessly.
Right. The data is flowing smoothly. Everyone has a clear understanding of how their roles fit into the bigger picture.
So the whole operation is becoming more sophisticated.
Exactly.
And then finally, there's the third phase.
That's cruise optimization. And this is where you've really hit your stride. Your AI systems are running smoothly. Your team is proficient with the tools. Your workflows are streamlined. You're operating at a whole new level.
So it's not that you're done improving, but you've reached a new baseline.
Yeah, exactly. And now you can really focus on fine-tuning and maximizing efficiency.
Now, before you launch into this whole acceleration process, the protocol actually has this really helpful pre-flight checklist.
Right. Always good to double-check everything.
So what are some of the key things on that checklist?
It's all about making sure you're really ready to go. So first, under systems ready, you got to make sure all your AI integrations are working correctly. Your automation is good to go. Your processes are documented. You're tracking the right metrics. And your team is trained and ready.
So you've got all your ducks in a row.
Exactly. And then under power available, you're checking that you have enough computing power, data storage, support staff, all the things you need to handle that increased workload.
You got to make sure you can actually fuel that acceleration.
Right. No running out of gas halfway through.
And then throughout this whole process, the protocol really emphasizes the importance of what they call control maintenance.
Yeah, you're constantly monitoring everything.
So what does that look like?
Well, the dealership in the example was tracking things like system performance under heavy load,
Okay.
how quickly the team was adapting to the new tools.
And how smoothly the processes were flowing?
Exactly. And all of this data helped them to make those crucial trim adjustments along the way.
So they could address any issues before they became big problems.
Exactly. It's about being proactive, not reactive.
So it sounds like this controlled, strategic approach, while it takes a bit more planning and monitoring, it leads to much better results in the long run.
Yeah, it's not about rushing in. It's about building something sustainable.
And that's really the big takeaway here. Real acceleration with AI isn't about speed. It's about controlled, sustainable momentum.
Got it.
So for everyone listening, take a minute to think about where your dealership is on this journey.
Are you just getting started or are you already climbing?
And what trim adjustments can you make today to build that sustainable momentum and reach that next level of performance?
It's an ongoing process.
That's right. And if you're interested in learning more about this whole 30-day AI protocol transformation system, we definitely encourage you to check it out.
It's a game changer.
It really is. So thanks for joining us for this deep dive, and we'll catch you next time.
See you then.